Hi again, everyone. Today we are in chapter 11 and we're going to do lesson 3. And we're still thinking about how we can measure objects. And the second question, what should I measure with? It's really important to use the right tools for any kind of job that you're doing. And when you're measuring, you've got to have the right tool to measure with. And just a reminder, if you don't have a ruler, you can always print out the one that I posted um, a day or two ago. And there's also one for the yardstick. Okay, so we talked about these yesterday, that 12 inches equal 1 foot, okay, and that 36 inches equal 3 feet, which equal 1 yard. Now I know these may not make a lot of sense until you actually get these tools in your hands and start measuring. But we have to be sure that we understand these concepts, or else it's going to be very difficult to complete this chapter. And we need to be sure that we know what the names of these tools are that we're using. So I've added some vocabulary to our field here. We have a ruler, which is also called an inch ruler. It's 12 inches. A yardstick, which is basically 3 rulers. An inch, and remember we said an inch is about the size of a quarter. A foot, a yard, and we talked about the word measure, which I think we already knew, and to estimate or to give an estimate, right? When we don't have something to measure with, but we can kind of imagine a number. A tape measure, this is something we'll see in today's lesson, which is sometimes called measuring tape. Okay, so all of this is our important vocabulary. The first page of every test we have taken has had vocabulary. And on the last one, that's where most of the mistakes were. So as we start a lesson every day, make sure you know these words. And we also have to think about what some of these things mean and what they're worth. Let me show you. So you have to make sure you memorize and think very much about how all of these things come together. We've talked about that inch. Well, when you think of an inch, since you probably don't carry a ruler in your pocket, think about a quarter. Now, when you think about 12 inches, what does that equal? 12 inches equal 1 foot. Okay, so that would be a little bit more than 12 quarters. Okay, an inch might be how tall a book is. Like, well, maybe a little bit. A foot might be a little bit longer than like a Dr. Seuss book or something like that. Find something that you know is a foot tall. Maybe a gallon of milk, a milk carton. That's pretty close too. So 12 inches equal 1 foot. 24 inches, and you'll remember from the math minute a long time ago that 12 plus 12 is 24, and it's a doubles fact. Okay, if we have 24 inches, how many feet is that? It's 2 feet. Okay, well, if we think about our 12 facts, 12 plus 12 is 24, and 24 plus 12 is 36. 36 inches is 3 feet, and that's a magic number. 3 feet or 36 inches, that is 1 yard. Okay, it's a lot of numbers, it's a lot of words, but we have to know these because in all of our math from now on, anytime we talk about measurement or in science, we're going to have to know how to use these. And there are lots more words coming. Okay, so we are going to be very careful and we're going to repeat and repeat until we all feel comfortable with these. Okay, now let's move on. So at the top here, it says select and use customary tools. Customary just means usual tools, things that people normally use. Well, in box one, draw an object that you might measure with a ruler. A couple of lessons ago, we talked about a CD, a marker, okay, something that's 12 inches or less, your sneaker. In box two, think about something that you would measure with a yardstick. In yesterday's lesson, we talked about a chair or a desk. Now, look down at box three. Here we've got a tape measure. And these can be used to measure really big things like rooms and hallways. You could even measure your house with a tape measure. So think about something big that would be very difficult to measure with a ruler or a yardstick and draw it here. Okay, and let's move on. Okay, let's read the guided practice at the top. You can select and use tools to measure length. Circle the tool you would use to measure a marker. Well, a marker is a pretty small thing, right? So I don't think we'd want to use measuring tape. We could, but it's not really necessary. And a yardstick, that's a little too big. We would use an inch ruler because a marker is not that big. Now, the helpful hint says measure objects shorter than a foot with an inch ruler. We talked about that. Objects longer than a foot with a yardstick. We talked about that. And objects longer than 3 feet with measuring tape. Now, at the middle of the page, it says find the object. Choose the tool and measure it. Explain why you chose that tool. Well, that first one looks like an eraser, like an eraser I might use on our chalkboard. I think our classroom is the only one that still has chalkboards, or to erase one of the whiteboards. On that first line, write down what kind of tool you would use from those 3 that we talked about up top. And then measure it. Okay, now if you don't have all of these tools, that's okay. And if you don't have an eraser at home, that's okay too. Try and estimate then, or find an object that's about the same size and measure that. Number 2 is a hallway. What would we use to measure a hallway? Like if we wanted to measure the distance from Mrs. Porter's room to the main office. Okay, write down that tool, and now you probably can't measure this, but maybe measure the distance between rooms in your home. Okay, number 3, from the bottom of the hand, it's called the heel of the hand, to the top of your longest finger, of the middle finger. Okay, what would you use to measure that? And it says at the bottom, how do you know which tool to use to measure? So I want you to explain this to someone. How do you know which tool to use to measure? And let's move on. Okay, number 4, that's a tissue box. Number 5, that's a locker. We don't have any lockers at our school, but when you go to the intermediate school, you will have lockers. I think in 7th and 8th grade. Number 6 is a glue stick. Number 7 is a swing set. Number 8 is a desk. And number 9 is a tile in the floor. We have tiles in our classroom on the floor. You might have some in your kitchen or in your bathroom. So, same thing. You're going to write down the tool that you would use here and then measure it here. Okay, and let's move on. Okay, the word problems. I know how much you love these. Number 10. VJ measures the length of his bike with a yardstick. He says it is 1 yardstick long. How many inches long is it? Okay, that's what we need to know. How many inches long is it? He says it is 1 yardstick long. Well, you might have to go back to the beginning of this video or to yesterday's to answer this. But our answer must be inches. How many inches is 1 yardstick? Number 11. Ethan measured his foot with a yardstick. What other tool would have been a better choice? Okay, I think you can figure this one out. And then our brain builder, brain builder, brain builders alert. Number 12. Aisha measured her backyard with a ruler. Curtis measured his backyard with a yardstick. What other tool would have been a better choice? Explain your answer to a friend or to a family member. Or you can send me a video. That would be great. Number 13. Omar laid 6 yardsticks end to end to measure his driveway. He said it was 6 feet long. Tell why Omar is wrong and make it right. What mistake did he make? He put 6 yardsticks down, one right after the other, end to end, and he said that that was 6 feet long. Think about that and write in the answer. Okay, and your homework for tonight, pages 661 and 662. And you know what? Since you've got your math pages there, why don't you just do it now and get it over with? And you don't have to do it tonight. You can get it all done now in the morning. Okay, it's got everything we've already talked about in this video. Good luck and have a great day. The end.